and she is this morning's 7:30 guest. I don't know where to stop introducing you, Karen, because I could keep going.
Oh. That's quite enough. Thank you, Troy.
Okay.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thanks for joining us on Boonwurrung country. I noticed you just changed your thing. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Melbourne's western suburbs. So yeah, just I guess around the boundary of Wurundjeri country and Boonwurrung country. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Well, let's get straight into it. What hat have you got on today? How's your day looking? And I guess let's talk a little bit about the bystander program that you first laid onto me.
Yeah. Wow. Well, let's just get straight into it. Great music you were playing before, by the way. It was very soothing, eased me into this conversation. So this is actually really good radio.
It is.
I don't mean to sound surprised because you're a man with many hats yourself. So, but enough about you.
Yes. Stop.
So I do quite a bit of work in the gender equity space with a group, with a project I've got started called Access All Areas, and it's really about making the music industry spaces more equitable and safe and I guess open for more women and gender non-conforming folks to participate and feel safe to do so. So as well as women of colour and people who have been, I guess, underrepresented in Melbourne's music scene in particular. That's
right.
Sort of, we're starting off there, and then we'll go work towards world domination. I don't know, maybe by this time next year. We'll see how we go.
It's a huge space that you work in and talk about, and you talk about world domination. It's because it's probably something that needs to spread right across the world. It's a world topic. It's not just Melbourne topic.
Yeah.
Explain to people why this program has been born, and what's the issue, what's the solution, and why is it all about prevention?
Okay, so they're all really big questions, but ultimately we know that that violence against women is preventable. It's something that we as a society and even within smaller community groups or family groups, that there are a lot of things that are feeding into why women experience violence. And when I talk about violence against women, it's not just physical violence, it's all kinds of harassment, it's verbal threats, it's abuse, it's financial control that men are having over women. I guess that they're the things that women are experiencing, and it's inhibiting their full participation in life and being able to present them full selves as, within that, feeling safe and confident to do so. So there's a lot of work, and there's probably not enough work, and there's probably not enough funding for those frontline services that are on the receiving end of when violence has occurred to women, and women and often children have to leave really quite awful situations. So they're the frontline services, and the work that I do looks at how we prevent violence against women. And we do that by, and a lot of the evidence, and this is a really big sector and people, study reams and reams on this topic. But what we do know is that when society is unequal, when equity across the genders is unequal, there are more opportunities for males, for example, than there are, and representation in different scenarios, even our political leadership down to who's on the board in your local organisation, or who's on the stage at your local favourite venue, or behind the DJ console in your nightclub. So most of those places are taken up by males. So we wanted to, and the sporting field is obviously another one, and there's, that's created a lot of great action and noise, beyond noise, action in recent years with the rise of the women's football league in all codes, really. So while that is fantastic, I saw that there was a gap in what the gender equity space was doing for the music industry, and looking at how music industry, where creative spaces, that's where I see culture being made, like arts and cultural spaces. It informs a lot of our, who we identify with and how we can best, express ourselves and relate to people who write the songs or who perform the songs, and we want to see ourselves in those people. So for a long time, and I'm not, obviously, women have been on stages of, for very many years, but the balance is unequal. So we just wanted to start unpacking what was going on there. I'll stop talking for a minute because I could just keep going.
Well, only if you needed just a little breather, a break. But let's just keep going. Bystander. Why did you pick the word bystander? What's it about? What's about a bystander?
Being a bystander or being an active bystander, I guess that's what we may see or observe or hear in our day-to-day lives or in our workplaces. I mean, a lot of work's going into the bystander approach, where people need to intervene but perhaps don't have the confidence or the knowledge or the capacity to intervene, so people aren't quite sure how to support people when they see discrimination, harassment occurring. So, and a lot of times that we, you think, I have to step in and be physical to stop this from happening, and we don't ever talk about putting yourself at risk or in harm's way when we're intervening in something, that we see that we think that's not quite right. So there are a bunch of ways that we can be active bystanders, and it doesn't hardly any of them involve, being the aggressor to move in between a situation to get physical or anything. So we unpack why that's important, and then if more people see more people standing up and saying no to that type of behaviour, then we're creating a community of people who go, actually that's not acceptable, and why are we standing by and letting that happen?
Yeah, the speaking up. Yeah. So in numbers, it's a is that the approach?
I mean, it doesn't mean it's not a mob mentality. Just if you see something occurring on a bus or a train, or that everybody piles in, but it does really help. If you don't want to, for example, you may not feel safe to intervene as somebody's being harassed, and this can be about racism and sexism, and they're all entwined, and we can talk a bit about that down the track. But it's more about when people feel safe to either even just give eye contact to the person who's experiencing the harassment and letting them know that you see them, that's something that you can do. Or if the incident passes, or that, the aggressor moves on, that you can check in on the person who's been harassed and say, are you okay? Is there anything I can do for you? Can I, walk with you now, to get you off the train or whatever it might be, or off the stage.
Yeah.
And I think those things happen in not always public places. It can happen in the lunchroom at work, or it can happen within the family. I mean, thinking about where, for those of us who are able to catch up with friends and family, especially over the coming weeks, now that we're all reached a point where we can get together again, there may be some instances where, around the Christmas table, that we want to be able to support the people who constantly, who experience the bit of the pylon. So it can happen within families, is what I'm saying, as well as in other settings.
I'm going to just speak hopefully on behalf of people that don't know what you're talking or are interested in going, well, what do you mean? What do you mean around the Christmas table? What do you mean? Because I think this falls into the category of some people don't see it or they don't know it. They don't know what it looks like. So what does some of the situations look like that you're talking about? Give us a music one and give us around the Christmas table. This is current info. We're like thinking about Christmas functions. Oh, everyone's going to be going, I remember something this last few weeks, how I better behave differently. This is going to be good.
Okay. So in the music industry, so it can happen in the rehearsal room, so even where, or you're auditioning for a part, or you see, somebody's looking for a bass player. So you go, you pluck up the courage, you walk into you ring up and say, yep, I want to try out to be in your band. And you're walking in, as a woman, you're walking in, or a non-binary person, you're walking into a room of males who are all drinking, who, and I've seen these scenarios, like, and, and it's like, show us, what you're made of, or, they're checking out the physical aspects of the woman as opposed to how they can perform. So those sorts of things can occur where, and maybe there's, there can be somebody in the band, like another guy in the band, who's like, oh, I just want to hear her play, but, they're all hearing, the other members of the band just checking her out, sort of thing. And so for that person in the band that goes, oh, let's just hear what she's got to play, rather than focusing on her appearance or checking her out or what she's wearing and that sort of thing. So I guess that's one way of seeing, how that person in the band could actually be a bystander, or, after the rehearsal, after the tryout, that he could just approach her and say, oh, that was really good. Oh, yeah, tough situation. Is there anything I can do, to help you, or that sort of thing. I guess that's an example of the band room. Certainly in the band, when bands are being managed, that, there can be some managers who might, be inclined to put money before the needs of the individuals in the band, and perhaps put, bills together where there's some bands with people who have reputations of being either racist or misogynistic, and putting their, let's just, we've got a woman in a band, or just let's get a woman in the band and everything will be peachy keen. So I think, those sorts of situations can set up really unsafe environments. And when you're being creative, you really want to be, to be creative, you have to bring your whole self to a place. So, and to feel safe to do so. It's a very vulnerable situation to be in a creative, like songwriting space or performance space. So that's, I guess they're little teasers of ideas. It happens,
and it builds up, and it builds up. Like it's compounding. It's even just on an isolated day. But I mean, this is happening to, say, for instance, that artist. It's happening every audition. But it happens like as they wake up. It happens the night before. It's kind of, it's not as they enter the room, they're going in and they're all clear-headed and going, oh, this is a shock. I expected,
absolutely.
I expected this to be really nice, but it's not.
It's a cumulative effect.
It's
and
cumulative.
As with racism, it's, people are experiencing harassment and abuse due to the colour of their skin or their country of origin, or whatever they're wearing, that adds up over time, and that really does harm people's health as well as their participation in life in general. There was something really good I was going to say there.
Can you give that's all right. Can you give the Christmas table one?
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess the cumulative effect, talk about being in a family, which, all of those, times that you come together as a family, and that there might be, if somebody's not conforming to what the ideal daughter is, or what that, how you dress, or how you look, or how much you eat, that you're not conforming. So there's those little digs that occur, oh, you want to go first, I suppose, or, oh, you're always doing that. Those are the things that happen. Or, oh, that'd be right. Well, you'd be, this, that, and the other, because, all of those, what is it? Those patterns that are really entrenched. And it can come from siblings, it can come from parents or aunties, or even children, can be part of that. And so to break that cycle can be really hard, and it can end up, when it just mounts up and up and up, and it can come out like, I'm not going to take it anymore. And then there's a big, Barney, and everyone's, reeling because, oh, gee, she's a bit sensitive today.
Oh, she must have.
Wonder what's up, what's going on with her today. And you just think, wow, that's been years where I haven't said anything. So I guess to be a bystander in that situation, so there'll be other people around the table who go, well, no wonder, or I'll just go and check if she's okay, or, that we can all kind of gather around the person who's been experiencing the harassment, rather than, as well as perhaps not even calling out bad behaviour, but you can call in bad behaviour. So calling in probably doesn't get much of a rap, but calling in can be about pulling someone aside and going, look, this is how it is, because you may not even know that this happened. When this happens all the time, this is how somebody feels. So it's not like, you're not harassing, you're not meeting harassment with harassment. You're sort of you're kind of educating people on what it is to be an ally. And so, at the moment we're going through the 16 days of activism. It's a 16-day international campaign.
I did just put up a link just as I'm
cool.
so glad you can't see the chat, but good.
Yeah, okay, great.
We're in sync. We're a great team. There's a link there. It's called 16 Days Allyship .whwest.org.au. I've just put it up on the link chat if you're wondering what Karen's talking about.
Yeah, so for people who want to know more about this campaign, it happens every year. Many countries around the world. It goes from the 25th of November, which is the International Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and it goes to the 10th of December, which is International Human Rights Day. So they are 16 days of where we're trying to get people involved in some sort of activism, or this year we're looking at what it is to be an ally, so allyship, how to support others. So there's a great lot of information and some clips and ways that people can get involved. If you follow that link, really encourage people to find out more.
I'm going to put myself in the spot here because I want to. I was thinking about what I'd say, and one of my things that I need to stop saying, I think I'm getting better, but I do, because I am thinking like this lately. But, talking about, that you must, I don't say these words anymore, but it must be close to you getting your period.
Yeah.
That's been more common when I was younger. I said it all the time. It was a bit more like, must be that time of the month again. I hope I never say that again.
Yep. Classic example, and I think, and you're not alone, and women do it as well. Sort of go, she's, That's really that's I guess a form of harassment and discrimination over something that we have no control
choice
over.
Yeah.
To do.
Silly.
Maybe it's best, asking if they, would you like a cup of tea or something, rather than, oh, here she goes.
Pointing, yes.
Those are all the things, just they can be really small actions to really big actions. And the big actions is about changing policy that makes things, illegal for, bad behaviour to be either illegal or unacceptable in workplaces, or that it can mean you lose your job if you can't, manage yourself professionally and properly in a workplace.
Some people are probably a bit stats driven, like kind of, oh, come on, prove any of this is happening. What's going on here? What's some very real stark stats that are happening?
I don't have stats here, but I do.
What give us a kind of like, is it that knocked it? Like, yeah.
So the stats that harassment occurs. What we do know is that that there's a bunch of, look, violence against women is a very real and damning statistic. Like the fact that this is happening to women and children and the homes are being busted apart. Like there are so many stats out there. I suggest everybody go to places like Our Watch, which is ourwatch.org.au, and that there's a bunch of stats, but also resources. I think the issue is that all of this is preventable. And and we often hear about when women, sadly, we hear, there's one woman killed by a male every week in this country, but we're not hearing about the women who are harmed and the children who are being harmed and who are losing their homes, their jobs, and all, the enormous ripple effect of what violence against women is doing to our communities. So we don't necessarily hear that, but it is, I think it's 1 in 5 women experience sexual abuse and assault throughout their lives. So and that cumulative, and it's not just once. The cumulative effect. So I guess and for women of colour, that they experience even more. It's a greater experience. And women who live with disability, it's an even greater statistic. So, I guess those compounding issues, when they're all together, like, there are some people out there that are really suffering and their children, and it's preventable. So why aren't we, thinking a bit more about why is this happening? What's my role in this? And I think that can get back to what is being an active bystander.
I love it, active bystander. It just changes the position, like of how you think of yourself. It puts you in the frame, but you're not in the frame. Like, but you are seriously involved. Women, like I've been involved, and I've observed things before that I just haven't had the knowledge or didn't know the ways in which I should have behaved. So, lifelong learning, I say. Yeah.
And all learn and become, better equipped. And, if we know young people in our lives, how we set the standard, or, we don't all have to be, the best person at all times. Life happens and we have really cruddy days, but if we're just aware, build our awareness about these things, and then we notice when things are not quite right, and then we'll gradually get the confidence to say, actually, that's not cool. That joke's not funny. Like, I just don't want to hear this again. Or, I may have said nothing every other time you've made those remarks, but actually it just makes me feel uncomfortable. So,
is the ball in men's court?
Absolutely. Well, the ball's usually in the men's court because,
Yes. Well, yeah, great.
I guess they're the ones that are dominating the sport. No. I think we all have a role to play, and yes, absolutely. And that's what the 16 Days of Allyship is really targeting, or, trying to reach out to males to see what their role in all of this is. And I guess the division of labour at home, it can be, think about who's doing the bulk of the domestic work at home. And through COVID-19, there's been a lot of, being backward steps for the roles that women and men play in the home environment, that women are taking more of that load. So let's have a look at all parts of our life, from and I guess that, women can take the bin out as well. It's not just the guy's job to take the bin out, and we have to think about how do we share those responsibilities that are a bit more equitable.
Did you hear that, Mum?
Oh no, not to tell your mum to take the bin out.
You tell my mum to take the bins out? Yeah, great. My mum's got such a shoddy back. It's not because of.
Well, we have to work. I have a bad back and arm and leg and everything.
I love helping out my mum. And look, there is some obvious differences in physicality and things that men can do things that women can't. There's the obvious things that are just we're built differently, generally speaking. But it doesn't mean you disable.
Yeah. But, like when I was growing up, I was never allowed to take out the bins or mow the lawn or, I grew up in a very rigid gender. There were roles for women and there were roles for men and they were very separate.
Is that where it starts, do you think? Like even just in little things like that? Like,
yeah.
No, you stay inside. Boys, this is boys' things are good. Boys, manhood's a thing. It's a good thing. But what you can't do because you're a female, like mowing the lawns, is silly.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it was something that I just always, that's just not where I belong. Like, for a lot of people who wants to mow the lawn and woohoo, isn't that great? And got out of mowing the lawn. But I also wasn't, I wanted to play soccer and that was something that was considered ladylike. And, so I'm kind of from a generation that probably was more prevalent. But those that's all. I still have a hangover from all of that, those formative years. So it does really start with what we think, what opportunities we give our kids or what we don't offer our kids, and it's not ballet club. I'm not talking about throwing money at your kids to do all the things. It's like helping in the kitchen and learning and teaching them how to cook and who does the washing and who's hanging out for the washing and all of that.
Yeah, so those things can still happen, but the language around it and the title around it saying it's okay for anyone to do anything, but you can say, we're doing the lawns today, or we're doing the washing today, not this is, hey, the men do the what?
Your sister's work, or this is what your brother does, and even it goes the other way as well. For young boys or males who want to do knitting or sewing or whatever it is that they want to do, that they should not be shamed for taking an interest in doing things, or to sit with Nana and to learn how to do something that Nana's always done. I think that it does go both ways, and that men have a lot to gain from that, the even distribution of, doing things that they want to do as well, and it gets down to, showing your feelings and talking about, how you feel about things. So I think, those rigid gender roles, that's really can be really harmful.
I even think of little language things of like, what are you wearing? It like to guys do to other guys, like like your handbag. Like they talk about handbags or looks like a dress, mate. Like why are you running like it's those. That's what we're talking about. Hey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
What are you? Are you wearing a pink shirt? Or some guys might get paid out on.
Your man bag, more like a handbag.
Pink shirt, or that you've got what's that one you're hanging off your shoulder for? And I think that can be really harmful over and over again. The guy might just want to have his things in a bag. Like, what's the big deal? Like, otherwise, what? Who's going to be carrying those things? It'll be or his girlfriend, or it's like, get your own bag, I say.
A handbag. Some of these handbags out there are a lot more functional than the stupid wallet I've got.
Yeah, see?
They're just more functional.
Do what feels right for you, and let's just, there are so many more things we could be, in great, being part of, rather than, picking out the little things that really don't matter. Let's let people be.
You throw like a girl. That's a great one, Melzy, on the chat line.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a
big
classic.
Girl, your big girl. You throw like a girl. You throw. Isn't there a documentary that came out recently or last year?
Yeah.
In Melbourne.
There's. I think there was a campaign, ads for like you throw like a girl.
You throw like a girl
as well, and the other thing. What happened there?
Yes, Jason says, do they make that for men? That's actually on Chopper. Nice shirt, son. Do they make it for men? It's. I say it because it's actually off Chopper, but I've heard people say that. Not from Chopper.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. Throw like a girl. Oh, boys will be boys is another one that or even, if a boy chases you or pinches you or hits you, it's because, like in the playground,
because he likes you.
It's because he likes you,
Right.
That's damaging. That's okay. So I just have to get used to. So that's what I expect from boys, that they will chase me, trip me over, pinch me, hit me, be nasty to me because they like me. Like, if we really think about that, like that's not helpful. That's quite damaging.
Hey, tell us a little bit about the program. What do you deliver? So you're going. I know you're doing something at Support Act this week.
Yes.
How's that program going? And why are you going? Why are you going into organisations, and what kind of things are you talking about to them?
Yep. So Access All Areas is the gender equity work for people who just joined in, doing gender equity work in music industry settings. So we have, we're trying to reach out to people who are musicians or who run venues, or even, work as security. I mean, given that, yes, the music industry has been hit really hard, especially in Melbourne, and a lot of the work has been closed down, pretty much since March. So so we're going in and talking about what is to be a active bystander, but also thinking about what people's sphere of influence is and how they can look at, whether it's the lineups that they're putting together, or if it's the policies they've got in place in their venue, or the way they communicate with their security, as to, even their advertising, the marketing that they do. But I guess, so back in March, we were doing a little pilot research study on the lineups of venues around Melbourne's north and west.
Yeah.
And it was just as the industry was closing down due to the pandemic. And we found, even in like the cool and enlightened northern suburbs, where all those cool venues are, there was, the number, it was like 75% or more of the lineups were male groups or male performers, which is pretty, shocking to think. And we do know that there are lots of girls who learn instruments or who want to be in bands, and so something happens, which is, that's right for another really big study for somebody in the world of academia, to look at why is it that we're not seeing, it's only the guy, mostly the guys that end up on the stage, even though all these girls are learning instruments. But what is happening that they're not getting there? So anyway, we did this study, and at the same time as the industry was closing down, this great festival called Isolate, the Blind Festival, was popping up, run by some really great people, including Emily Ullman, and she's got a great track record and great relationships she's built with all kinds of people, but a lot of non-male performers, I guess, were on that bill. So we saw in the first 2 weekends of the Isolate Festival, that's just sort of through March, that it was a really even split of gender diversity and racial diversity as well. So I guess it is possible that we're able to there are people out there wanting to perform, but also we don't want women and caregivers, so women who are mothers who then, take on the primary caregiving role that, perhaps the opportunities for them to perform, or they'll just perform because, oh yes, that's a gig,
Yeah.
I can do. And look, I don't mind not getting paid. It's just good promotion and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of difference between what the experience is for male performers compared to non-male performers. So we're trying to unpack all of that with music, so people who are, it's a big job, but I think there's a lot of will and people really interested, and talking to people in interstate as well as New Zealand, and imagine what it would look like if the music industry became more equitable and equal opportunities for everybody. And
what okay, last question. I'll get on a roll again.
Oh gosh, it's been a while.
Hey, why is it that men are getting picked, but why is the percentage higher in festivals? I know it's changing, and it got called out a few festivals ago, a couple of years ago. Why is it? Why is it getting? Is it males? Is it males picking other mates?
Well, we also know that there aren't as many women in positions of decision
of choice.
making.
Yes, so right.
So that definitely makes a difference. But I think also a lot of males get more gigs from early on, so that they get more experience, so they get to grow their crowd. And that just feeds on itself. So this is why we do need to look at what that is, and often if there is a female performer, they are more likely to be the singer, and they are more likely to be the only non-male in the band. So we need to just have a think about who are the female musicians, and how it would be more sort of safer and more inclusive if there wasn't just one woman in a band, that there were more, and similar, for people of colour, that they would feel, from what we're told, is that they feel more comfortable when they're not the only person of colour DJing that night, that they can, they're not the token, it's not a tick box.
Yep.
So I think we need to look at that as a more, that requires strategy and a real plan to go, okay, what are we doing here that will make it safer and more inclusive for people of colour, for women, for non-binary folks, and for people with a disability? And I guess that's what Access All Areas is looking at ways we can do that within the music industry and the platforms we have. So Music Victoria, the Victorian Music Development Office, we're working with VU and their music students, and RMIT as well, and sort of just trying to get more people thinking about this and see what change it can affect. But if people want to know more about Access All Areas, just go to accessallareas.org.au, and there's a bit there, and you can join our mailing list and find out a bit more about that.
Is it something that is useful outside of the music industry? Do you go into organisations and deal with stuff outside of it, or are you primarily dealing with more so the music industry at the moment?
Yeah, so Access All Areas work on the music industry. However, there's like Women's Health in the North and Women's Health West. There's and other organisations. There's Gender Equity Victoria. They're all doing lots of great workplace programs for people to look at wherever they're working and to implement changes. So there's a lot of training opportunities. So I encourage people to find out what's happening in their area. This is radio, like you go beyond, wherever you may be in the country or the world.
Yeah.
Just do some homework, do some reading, and the more you read, I guess on the reading, read things that are written by women and from a women's perspective, and read more from people of colour and for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to understand, people's perspectives, and that's how we all, grow our collective empathy. That's what I feel like I'm all about.
Karen, I've got a question here, so I've got to sneak it in. Someone actually asked a question. Any advice on how mothers can raise their young sons to respect women? This might be assuming, I know this person, is this assuming that they don't have a father around? I'm going to go with that.
Yeah. Look, I think it's the way, it's a little bit about self-love and how we respect ourselves as women. And I think if, we can't, I think it's got to be modelled. So positive behaviours and relationships need to be modelled before young children. So, I think that's how we're not, it's like, nobody's born racist and nobody's born sexist. Like that's learned behaviour. So how we talk to ourselves, how we treat ourselves, people say, that self-care is also a part of being an activist. We can't pour from an empty cup. So I guess, thinking about how that occurs, but also getting back to those gender stereotypes, those role gender stereotypes, that's another way we can help, our young boys to not really, that it is okay to cry. None of this man up business. People are, are people, and that we all have, feelings. Boys can wear pink or whatever colour they want to, and I guess to pull them up on teasing anybody for looking different or for dressing, that may look like a girl or something like that, or growing their hair long. I think all of those things when kids are young, boys can play netball, boys can play basketball, boys can play football, just like girls can. So I think, they're the things that we want to teach our kids as well.
As expected, Karen, we have to cut this off short.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to say.
You're so impressive. I've been impressed with you from the time that I met you, and just the way you go about your work. It's such a hard space, and I hope you get rest, and I'm sure you do. But thank you for spending your time this morning dealing with this and talking about it, and talking about words and things that are considered, and you strung your sentences together very well.
I was hoping, it's a bit early for me to be just bang on, but I gave it a crack. I really love your show. I mean, this is like, it's a radio show, but it's on the screen. I have to put my lippy on, and I do the light. I don't know, is it all okay?
I won't lie. I usually ask guests to come on and go, yeah, they come on, and I get a yes, and then I say it's on video, and they're like, 7:30. Not my best angle at 7:30. But anyway,
look, we got to be kind to ourselves. Like, you're looking good. You've got it all sussed out. Loving your artwork. Love the playlist earlier. As I said before, this is really good radio, and I shouldn't be surprised because you're also a man of many talents. So go really good radio.
High vibes all around. All right, Karen.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully there's people out there listening, and follow up some other information if you want to know more.
Thanks, Karen. Have a brilliant, what day is it? Tuesday?
It's only Tuesday.
We'll go heavy early, and we'll maybe light. No, this is great. Thanks for your time today, Karen.
Yeah, thanks all. Thanks, Troy. I'll catch you around.
Catch you soon, huh?
See ya.